In 1992, Steven Seagal took a chance on an action thriller that was dubbed Die Hard on a Battleship. The result was a worldwide box office of $150 million, 2 Oscar nominations, becoming one of the biggest action stars in the world, and a career that would become legendary. But did it? Because Seagal once sat in the same throne as Arnie, Van Damme, and Stallone.
I would love to see a Steven Seagal in part 3. He should lose some weight.
But he was soon removed, with feuds with his co-stars.
He told my publicist that if he ever saw me on a red carpet, he was going to knock me out.
Crippling box office receipts, essay allegations, and doubts about his true martial arts background.
And I wonder how you deal with all that. Hello, Steven Seagal.
He's a man who once had it all, but the man who once had it all is now more seen often at the Kremlin than on cinema screens. But he could have had it all. Seagal was born in 1952, Michigan, USA, and as a kid he learnt karate and aikido, a pathway that would take him to Japan in his 20s, where he immersed himself in aikido and eventually became the first foreigner to run an aikido dojo in Japan. He earned a 7th Dan black belt, one of the highest ranks in aikido. Not a bad feat at all. However, in the 80s, he took his skills to LA and opened up a dojo there, where he trained legendary actors like James Coburn and Sean Connery for Never Say Never Again. And just like all the other stars in this series so far, fate had its wicked way, because Michael Ovitz, one of the most powerful Hollywood agents in the world at the time, decided to take Aikido classes and stumbled upon Seagal as he was teaching him. And upon meeting Seagal, he decided that he actually might make a good action star based on his heights, his looks, and his personality. And that was it. Boom. He was in his first movie, Above the Law, as the lead. The lead. Crazy.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying?
He was 36 at the time. Van Damme had to do bit part roles and work in jobbing jobs. Adkins had to do this.
It's that hump from the calf.
And this. Chan had to do this and work in construction. Jar had to do this. Hell, even Michael J. White had to do this. But Steven Seagal is the lead front and center of his own Hollywood movie, First Time, at 36 years old. No questions asked. Seagal plays Nico Toscani, an Italian-American Aikido master, a Vietnam veteran.
What is this shit, huh? You want to get high?
And an ex-CIA operative. Literally none of those things are true in real life of Seagal. He wasn't an Italian-American or a Vietnam veteran, nor had he ever worked in the CIA. As far as an Aikido master, well, we'll come back to that later. The movie was directed by Andrew Davis. Now, his character Nico is a stoic loner who kicks ass. Ovitz, the super agent, gave him a role that best suited his personality, and the movie made $19 million on a $7 million budget. Not a bad start for a nobody, a non-trained actor in a lead role. And all of this because he taught a super agent in his own dojo. After this was Hard to Kill, which grossed $60 million, where he plays John Hatcher, a stoic loner who kicks the asses of Jamaican drug gangs. And then Out for Justice in 1991, where he plays Gino Fellino, an Italian-American cop who's a stoic loner who kicks ass. This one was another hit. In fact, world-famous movie critic Roger Ebert said of his performance, he has icy charisma.
Memorabilia, we got some gloves over here.
Fans loved this one for its gritty and brutal fights.
You knocked my teeth out!
This is actually ranked amongst Steven Seagal's best work, and with many actually praising his acting skills. This movie made bank. Another profitable movie. So Seagal was now on a generational run. 3 for 3. But could he make it 4 for 4?
You're goddamn right.
Under Siege was a moment when things got real. 30 years on, and this movie does not get the love it deserves. At the time, it was a mammoth hit. Andrew Davis, who directed Seagal in Above the Law, was back to direct this movie. The writer of Pretty Woman wrote the screenplay, and a pre-Oscar winning Tommy Lee Jones plays the part of a rogue CIA operative. He and a corrupt Navy officer, played by Gary Busey.
Gary Busey, how are you, man? Good to see you, baby. It's Ari.
You are a gut maggot with no guts.
You're gonna spin off this planet. I love it. Keep at it.
Okay, Ari.
God bless you.
Hijack the battleship to steal nuclear weapons. Seagal, a former Navy SEAL turned cook, who is stoic, a loner, and kicks ass, has to save the day, and save the day he does. What sets this movie apart from most of Seagal's work was that the character also had heart and a bit of humor, making him likable, much like Bruce Willis in Die Hard, of which this movie is obviously aping. And this movie made $156 million on just a $35 million budget, and it was nominated for Best Sound and Best Sound Effects Editing at the Oscars. Tommy Lee Jones and Andrew Davis went into The Fugitive a year later, which saw Jones winning an Oscar and Davis being nominated for Best Director. Massive achievements for them both. But more than anything, this now cemented Steven Seagal as an A-list actor, a massive box office draw, celebrity interviews, movie offers. His future was looking incredible. Nothing could stop him. Well, actually, the thing with action stars is you can always typically see where they peak. It's normally around about the point they think they've hit the absolute top and decide that they now want to direct their own movies. Seagal's next movie was On Deadly Ground, his directorial debut. A movie about, well, the environment?
Now this land has a friend.
In you, I've seen a great spirit.
These people have a warrior.
And this movie's performance did, well, actually, let's pause there. Because there were early signs that cracks were beginning to show in Seagal's personality.
Steven Seagal! I hope you'll forgive me for being a little bit serious, but it's important to me to let you know that there's a lot more to Steven Seagal in the martial arts.
His performance 3 years ago on Saturday Night Live in 1991 is said to be the actual worst, if not one of the worst performances in SNL history.
The United States on speakerphone as he reveals...
When I mentioned he wasn't Italian-American, maybe I was wrong, because this accent is definitely authentic, right?
What do you think they were doing with a making shark for girls' softball games?
This episode will forever go down in legend as one of the worst SNL episodes of all time. Lorne Michaels, the show's producer, later banned him from ever hosting again. In his first 3 hit movies that we just spoke about, cast and crew also noted that he was difficult, arrogant, and unwilling to take direction. And this was even before the fame kicked in. He also regularly told journalists that he worked for the CIA. This was vague, mysterious, but never proven. By the early 90s, many of the industry thought he was a bullshitter, inflating his past to make himself sound larger than life.
Was it Steven Seagal? Huh? Was it Steven Seagal that told you that? What? Steven Seagal, did he tell you to get away from him? He may be a wannabe.
I'm sorry I brought this up. I'll figure it out.
He's a wannabe. Because the wannabes are the ones with the attitude.
Or maybe wannabe again or something. Who knows?
But he's a wannabe that will never be. Yeah. See, because guys with that attitude just don't make it.
Even his martial arts credentials were being called into question.
He said there's an old story about Jean-Claude Van Damme calling out Steven Seagal to a real fight after Steven was talking crap to him at Sylvester Stallone's house party. And they claimed that Steven backed down and left, and then Jean-Claude Van Damme went and found him at a bar somewhere and challenged him again, and Steven backed down again. So in an actual fight between Steven Seagal and Jean-Claude Van Damme, who would you give it to?
Jean-Claude Van Damme, look, anybody. I'm sorry. In my belief, you would beat Steven Seagal.
And now back to this movie. His directorial debut and his first flop. An eco-thriller where he plays a firefighter/mercenary battling an oil company in Alaska. The budget ballooned to $50 million, but only made around $38 million in the US, though it did do better overseas. Critics hammered it. Roger Ebert again gave it 1 star, calling it an environmental propaganda described as an action movie. It's basically the movie version of this skit from SNL 3 years earlier.
This is what happens when you pollute the planet.
Under Siege 2 was next, which did okay, but not as good as the first movie.
Any other heroes? The cook from Under Siege is back.
I'm not even a good cook, but there are some things I'm good at.
And things are really heating up.
And then the true drop-off began. The Glimmer Man and Fire Down Below both flopped, critically and commercially. Executive Decision, where he famously was killed off in just 45 minutes into the movie. Showed that he was no longer a big leading name for blockbusters. And he also fought with his co-star.
For Executive Decision, okay? I'm playing his master sergeant, and we come in for rehearsals, and he comes in, I'm in command. What I say is law. Anybody doesn't agree? And I was like, I started cracking up because he sounded like a retard. And he came up and he taekwondo'd my ass against the brick wall. Went, he's 6'5" and caught me off guard, knocked all the air at me. I was like, oh.
The downfall was as quick as the rise, and probably a lot worse than people remember. Because Steven Seagal's last Hollywood theatrical release, can you guess when it was? Let me know in the comments. It was in 2002, with Half Past Dead alongside... Yeah, you again, Ja Rule. It flopped hard. It currently holds just 3% on Rotten Tomatoes, and this led to straight-to-DVD releases for Seagal for the rest of the 2000s. At this point, he was barely recognizable from that svelte 90s Hollywood star. He was bigger, slower, and starring in absolute trash. Low-budget, poorly written slop. At his peak, he was being directed by Oscar-nominated directors, and his screenplays were being written by writers of classic movies like Pretty Woman. But in the 2000s, the prestige was gone.
The prestige?
No, not that. This. And what replaced it was essay allegations from Jenny McCarthy and his assistant, as well as links to the Mafia. Julius Nasso, his former business partner, was arrested in 2002 for extorting Seagal with the help of the Gambino crime family.
Johnny Gambino came over and talked to John. I was sitting right next to him, of course. And he says, I got this guy's an actor. Up and coming, just starting to act. You mind if I bring him over? He would love to say hello to you. And sure enough, this tall guy with his hair slicked back with a ponytail, Steven Seagal. Johnny Gambino and that crew, 18th Avenue, the Greaseballs, they had him. And he was given a piece of every movie that they did. Money was coming in from, I don't know how they get it out, but what they do there, but money was coming in. Steven Seagal, all those karate movies, remember them things? He shit in his pants, I think, twice. He was so scared. They were on tape. So they went to Steven Seagal and told him, we got this tape. They were threatening you, and we have it on tape. We want you to testify. He turned white, he just, he was paralyzed with fear about testifying. Agent said, why would he do that, bro? Why didn't he just get up and give Peter Gotti and Sonny Secone a couple of karate chops like he does in a movie? And when he went in the back room, was hysterical crying. 2 agents had to hug him. So I thought it was hysterical.
Further to this, he was being sued multiple times for failing to deliver on contracts, walking off set, and failing to promote movies. The 2000s were horrible for Seagal, and most of it was self-inflicted. Some actors like Van Damme, who had drug issues in the 90s, made comebacks and ended up being at Cannes, and was still loved by the public. Seagal simply spiraled. The end of the 2000s saw him head a terrible reality TV show, of which he ended up with another SA allegation. The 2010s saw endless, mainly European-funded, straight-to-streaming releases like Born to Raise Hell, Maximum Conviction, Force of Execution. I'm just going to put the rest on screen. I can't bother to read them out. They're all terrible. These movies were ridiculed by literally everyone. And as the once agile action star was now clearly either not able to perform the moves, or he just didn't want to perform the moves, with many fights being staged with him sat down, or body doubles being used to fight, walk, or even act, and his voice being overdubbed.
Base. Rena, do you hear me? I'm running out of patience.
Come on now, dog. Come on, man.
And then the Me Too movement in the mid-2010s saw him embroiled in allegations after allegations. Jenny McCarthy, Portia de Rossi, and Ray Dawn Chun came forward with stories of harassment and misconduct. Accusations of him having sex slaves during the filming of his reality TV show came to the surface. And then in 2016, maybe as an act of escape, Seagal just left. And became a Russian citizen, affirming his close links to Vladimir Putin, who granted him citizenship.
This war that we are currently embroiled in was started and financed by the West and has come to involve the entire world in a fight against good and evil.
In 2018, he was even appointed by Russia as the special envoy for humanitarian ties with the US. I really don't know what that means, and honestly speaking, I don't think he's done that job very well.
What the fuck is going on here?
Whilst in the background, financial lawsuits in the US were being lodged in his direction for fraud. And maybe worse than the Russian citizenship and the financial issues were the questions about the legitimacy of his martial arts abilities. Seagal was known for refusing to spar or fight with his peers, and many questioned whether his Aikido skills were practical in real-life fighting scenarios.
What Aikido was originally created for, I hope I'm not mistaken, was learning how to disarm, like that. The guy comes at him with a knife and he flips the guy and takes the knife away. He's using the guy's energy against him. That was the original intention of Aikido. But in terms of Japanese martial arts, Aikido was never thought of as the most effective. Judo is far more effective because Judo involves people grabbing people and flipping them and slamming them on the ground.
Legendary stuntman Gene LeBell allegedly choked Seagal out in the 90s after Seagal claimed that no one could do so.
Had a confrontation with him. He said it's the director's job to make it look real. That's why he put the camera here, and that's why he puts the camera here. It's my guy's job to make you look great, and it's your job to protect my goddamn man. And Steven didn't like that, and so he had a problem. Gene went back to the director. They did the take again. Steven didn't pull any punches, and Gene takes off his stopwatch that he times the fight thing for. He puts it around the neck of his assistant and he says, "Keep this. When I get back, I'm going to be fired." And he walks up to Steven, front chokes him, yanks him in, rips him up like this, and Steven pissed his pants and dropped to the ground.
Now, Seagal does deny this, but the story is legendary in stunt circles. This is what Seagal had to say about it.
Gene LeBell, who wants to say that, you know, he's the stunt guy who beat up Bruce Lee. Gene LeBell is somebody who made his entire career lying about who he beat up. Calls himself Judo Gene LeBell.
We had experts look in every Kodokan, Budokan, Judokai, everywhere to see if this guy had one black belt. We couldn't find one. And what everybody came back to me and said is, he's never even studied judo. So he walks around telling everybody he's Judo Gene LaBelle, tells everybody he beat me up, he choked me out, you know, he beat up Bruce Lee, he choked out Bruce Lee, he went to some big, you know, fight somewhere where there's some people fighting in the audience and they were endangering people, so he beat up one of them and killed him, and he had to go into hiding. I mean, the guy is a pathological liar.
But then again, this is what Seagal had to say about Bruce Lee.
To work with him that day and fight him was a great pleasure for me.
I was going to say, Dan Inosanto, at one stage, Bruce Lee's #1 student. You also...
and teacher.
And teacher. Friends with James Coburn as well, who was one of Bruce Lee's students, indeed.
That's how I met Bruce Lee, was through James Coburn.
And it's highly unlikely that he ever met Bruce Lee, as they didn't study the same discipline, so there would have been no reason for them to be around each other. But also, Bruce Lee died in 1973. Seagal was still in his late teens when he died. So why would he have been around Lee? Or rather, let's ask this question. Why would Lee have been around him? Not to mention the fact that he's been accused of roughing up actors on set in the past.
Because he had a history of hurting stunt doubles, right?
Yeah. He has a history of that. I think that's some chicken shit stuff to hit anybody. So I call my manager and I'm like, Craig, would you believe that they're delaying? They want me up here to finish the fight scene with Steven Seagal, and they're really trying to entice me to like injure him. And I'm like, I don't hear anything on the other line. And I'm like, Craig, are you there? He's like, you know that wouldn't hurt your career none. I'm like, you too? Are you serious? I'm dead. I kid you not, this shit happened.
And is there a future for Seagal with amazing movies and maybe a comeback movie? Maybe Expendables? Well, no. In fact, he's never been asked to do Expendables because, well, he had an issue with the producer of the Expendables, and quite frankly, I don't think anyone wants him to be on those movies.
Yeah, I met the guy a few times. He's a nice guy. Doesn't like me much. I like him a lot. Good guy, good charisma. He's got something special on the screen. I would love to see him there. Yeah.
Why doesn't he like you?
Because maybe I'm good.
Yeah.
Seagal is now 73 years old. There is no comeback on the horizon, and because over the years he has never verified his own tall tales or tempered his ego, he just hasn't gracefully aged to be loved by the public, like Van Damme, for example. And instead, he's just doubled down on his behavior over the years. So it's hard to talk of him favorably off-screen or on-screen. But there's no denying that super legendary agent Michael Ovitz got it right when he first cast Steven Seagal as the stoic loner type who believes he can kick asses, based purely on his personality. All these years on, it's quite clear that Ovitz didn't cast him to act. He just cast him to be himself.
Congratulations, first of all. You look like a real natural in the movies. Was that natural for you to be an actor?
Well, I think if it looked natural to you, you know, I mean, that's probably the answer, yeah. I try not to act.
Right, ratings time. So as a precursor, Seagal gets a lot of ridicule online, but I will be fair with these points and I will omit all the potential lies, allegations, and the such to a point. For skills, well, two things are definitely true. He did train and teach Aikido. Those things are facts. And on screen, he has used those skills to his advantage, especially in his earlier career, where his 6'4" frame was a dominating factor. But he never was one of the most agile of fighters, nor did he do anything that was particularly wow. Even Jason Statham has done more daring stunt and feats on screen. So I need to give him a 6 there. Movies. Those first 4 movies of his career were real door openers and will live in legend, but the rest of his filmography is pretty appalling, especially since the 2000s, and there are so many movies that he starred in recently that are seriously either minimal effort or just beyond terrible, to the point where they're basically fraudulently using his name on the key art. But those first 4 movies do count for something, so it's gonna have to be a 7 here. For screen presence, this is tricky because He does or did have incredible screen presence, not just his frame, but also he was good on screen as an action star. But I simply have to take off marks for his overuse of body doubles for even the most basic things like walking. That's just not cool. Now, I would actually have given him an 8 here, but it has to be a 7 instead. For versatility, well, I mean, this is a short category here, unless you include his dabbling into becoming a blues artist. His versatility is poor. He's basically been playing himself for 40 years nearly, and unfortunately, himself is not a great person based on history.
Hey, why don't you guys speak English?
So he gets a 5 here, and this is where he'll score the highest in legacy, because for all of the ridicule, he still is one of the most recognizable faces on the planet. Most people who know movies know Seagal, and even those who don't know movies kind of know his face. His legacy, though, has been tainted by serious allegations, which has made him rather infamous. And, of course, stories about him running away from Van Damme and being choked out, well, it's not great. But I have to give him a 9 here. And, mind you, that's not exactly because his legacy is all good. Most of it is actually bad at this stage, but it's still a legacy, good or bad. And that's a final score of 28, which puts him way at the bottom of the pile. And honestly, before I scripted this video, I thought he would be in the 40s and maybe even beyond Jason Statham. And that's just based on the fact that I thought he had done more things as an action star in the past, but he actually really hasn't. And that meshed with his off-screen persona and the allegations means that that mark is more than a fair assessment. Over the years, some people have healed and become better versions of themselves, but some don't. And in the end, that may well be the lasting tale of Steven Seagal, a once A-list Hollywood superstar.
Early 90s. And so he goes into one of those trailers, to meet with Steven Seagal, and he's on the set. And it's one of those big triple bangers where you go into this trailer and it's like you can get lost in there. It's a maze of pop-outs, It's like, which pop-out is Steven Seagal? And he's in the 3rd bedroom to the left and the end of the hall.
Big star.
And he's waiting in there for 45 minutes. He's making him wait, sitting there by himself. Finally, Steven Seagal emerges from one of the other ante-rooms in the mobile home. And he comes out and he said, "I just read the greatest script I've ever read in my life." He goes, "Really? Who wrote it?" "I did."
The one question we have is, have you gotten an Aikido-based death threat from Seagal in Russia?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He told my publicist that if he ever saw me on a red carpet, he was going to knock me out.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm safe.
You don't have to worry about him being on a red carpet anytime soon.
Ain't nobody putting him in a premiere.